Well, good evening and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation. This is the final word on all things Rangers this weekend as we prepare to enter another week. But you know what? It's not just any normal week, guys. Here on Glasgow Rangers Nation, we will build up to the first game of proper, real, genuine football. Yes, real football's back. August the 3rd, 12:30 kickoff at Tynecastle. Real football is back. No more preseason, no more friendlies, no more pointless games. All these games now from the 3rd of August matter. Something is riding on them, whether it's 3 points in the league, whether it's the advancement in a cup competition, whether it's the entry to a Champions League, whether it's the entry to the Europa League. If it all goes hideously wrong in the Champions League, everything matters from now on. Nothing is, pointless. Nothing is, oh, well, it's pre-season. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Oh, well, there's next week. Doesn't happen anymore. As of the 3rd of August, we're playing for real, guys. We're playing for real. Welcome to Robert Simpson, becoming a member of the channel. Remember, that is a 99p commitment for just a month, obviously, every month. Fantastic support. Thank you. Hello, Aldo. How you doing? One of my mods. Welcome aboard the final word tonight. Well, we've got a few things we need to discuss tonight here on the final word. We're going to look back across this week in Rangers. We'll look back at the Birmingham game and look back at the Union Berlin game. Obviously, a signing this week, an exit this week, a number of different things going on at the club this week. But we're going to start off with something that took place today. No, not the death of the Joan Jordan deal. That's what we're going to refer to him now as, Joan Jordan. Now that he's now obviously not going to become a Rangers player, we can take the mickey out of him relentlessly for being called a girl's name. So let's have a look. Today, this was the League Cup draw has been made already, guys. This is the League Cup draw. Rangers and Celtic obviously entering the draw at this stage, and this is our draw. So Aberdeen v Queen's Park at Pittodrie, Celtic versus Hibs at Sharkhead, Dundee versus Airdrie, Dundee United v St Mirren. Now Scottish Premier League side Dundee United after they were promoted back to the SPL. Falkirk v Hearts. Motherwell v Kilmarnock, Rangers v St Johnstone, and the fantastic Spartans. I wonder if they'll play with their red capes, their shields, and their bare chests when they take on Ross County. Although I think having 300 players would be slightly unfair on Ross County. I wonder if before, guys, as you've seen the Spartans play, the day before the game, do they go, "This is Sparta"? Do they do that? I don't know. I'd like to play them just to see if they do that. Anyway, Rangers take on St Johnstone in the League Cup. That tie will, of course, be played in August, and that tie will, of course, be played at Hampden Park, not at Ibrox, with obviously no date as yet for the return to Ibrox. Aldo, what have you heard? Where have you heard it? And who have you heard it from? Share, spill, and go for it. Geordie, hey, Geordie, long time no here. Evening, Owen, and all the chat. Who's actually going on with Igman? He's in, but he's not training with the first team. Wasn't he supposed to be the next striker to lead us forward? Well, what do I know about Hamza Igman? Well, only what I've been told. So what I've been told is this, that Hamza Igman is with Rangers. He's not a figment of somebody's imagination. He has not just been made up by the club and some money given to somebody on the pretense that we've signed some person from Morocco. It's not another Deirdre Rashid issue. He is a real person. Apparently, though, his fitness is a long way off what you need to obviously play at this level. And he is training on his own one-to-one with the strength and conditioning coaches, with the fitness coaches, and is not ready yet to take part in first-team football activities on the training ground. So that's going to put him a long way behind in terms of his preparation, the fact that he has not played any competitive football. So he's not injured. He's not missing in action. He hasn't just failed to turn up. He is training one-on-one with the fitness trainers. He's going to Rangers. Okay, well, great, wonderful. Good evening, Blue Nose. How you doing, buddy? So come on, what have you heard, Aldo? You keep telling us Rangers down, but you haven't noticed anything. Pete McLeod, hi, bud. I heard a deal being done for Seema. Have you heard any others the same? I haven't heard anything about Seema, Pete, not since the 4 million. So I haven't heard anything about that at all. Hate to say it, but Celtic looked miles ahead because we went back the way. I've got to say, I have seen some highlights of their game against Chelsea. They did absolutely smash Chelsea. Yes, Chelsea are not in a good place. Yes, Chelsea are a chaos club. Yes, Chelsea only drew with League One Wrexham, but again, we lost to League One Birmingham. So look, yeah, look, pre-season's pre-season. It is. They're doing well. They are a long way ahead of us. I think. Look, I don't really want to talk about Celtic because I don't like them. I hate them. But I think you've just got to look at it this way, Aldo, and guys out there. Celtic are a long way ahead of us because of the fact that you look at their team they played against Chelsea, and you look at how they lined up against Chelsea. And, it is largely the same team that played last season. It is largely the same 11 that played. I mean, if you look at their team that started against Chelsea, Kasper Schmeichel obviously is a new signing, but their back four was Ralston, Carter Vickers, Scales and Taylor, same as back four as last year, with the exception of obviously Gollum, who usually plays right back. Midfield three was Hatate, McGregor and Rowe Riley, again the same midfield three as last year. Their front three was Dyson, Maida, Kyogo and Forrest, again the same front three as last year. So, at the end of the day, they've got an advantage that they're not putting a team together. They're not trying to rebuild. They're not selling players. They're not getting rid of players. At the end of the day, they're playing pretty much the same 11 that finished last season. So these 11 guys, they've played together week in, week out last season. They went through a whole season last season. We're trying to obviously bring in new players, try new systems, bring in new tactics. They'll be doing exactly the same. At the end of the day, look, this is the last I want to talk about them. They've got very little prep to do, other than get fit. They're doing exactly the same as what they did last season. So realistically, a lot hasn't changed. Why have we still not brought in a centre-back that can win a header? Stuart, that is a fantastic question. As we covered on the transfer pod this afternoon, it's one position that I do think we need to address. And I am going to look at the defence in this final word as we come out of that Union Berlin game. Every season they have Champions League money. They know how to win. We just seem to stumble through games. Correct, Philippe? If we're going into the season with just Davis, Suter, Balogun, won't win anything. They're not good enough. EG. Evening, CJ and I. How you doing, buddy? How's Northern Ireland this evening? Right, guys, so let's look at pre-season. So, look, pre-season has not, I think we can all agree, pre-season has not been very clever for Rangers. Really has not at all been very clever for Rangers. We've played 4 times, which, is encouraging from the fact that obviously has given us some much needed experience. It's given us some much needed game time, which, that's a positive. But if you look at the overall record from pre-season, it's not particularly clever, is it? We've played 4 times. We haven't won a single pre-season game. We've lost 3 times, we've drawn 1, we've scored 6, and we've conceded 10. So we're averaging over 2 goals a game, which is very, very worrying. I'm Northern Irish as well. I'm roasting in UK terms. Yeah, you are, Caleb. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's 22 degrees here in the Midlands as well. So, look, it's not been the best of pre-seasons, has it, in terms of the actual results? Now, look, I understand and I get that pre-season, a lot of it is about fitness, minutes in legs, bringing players in, settling them in, getting them ready. It's what it's all about. It's what it's all about. But by the same token, pre-season, once you get past the first couple of games, is not just about fitness. It's not just about minutes in legs. It's not just about, just getting players out on the field. It's about putting in patterns of play. It's about putting in tactics. It's about putting in shape. It's about putting in set-piece schemes, set-piece defensive schemes, set-piece attacking schemes. And there's been a lack of that. There's been a real lack of that. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the 2 games from this week. 62 people watching this evening. Please obviously smash that like for me. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please obviously sub to the channel as we approach 6,100 subscribers. Butland didn't look great in pre-season with that, but with that defence in front of him, who can blame him, to be honest? I think Butland's coming for an awful lot of stick. Yeah, although he does look a bit of a nervous wreck. And I think, having that defence in front of him is not helping in the slightest, is it? I mean, let's face it, that defence is piss poor. It really genuinely is. No worries, bud. Hopefully Dave Weir can help us with negotiations, and he was a good player for us. Fast, strong, and in the air, capable of scoring goals. Fingers crossed, keep up the good work. Thank you, Pete. Look, we do need a centre-back. We need a centre-back quite desperately, actually. For me, the centre-back position is, really not there, not 100%. At all. You look at what we've got in that position. We are going to look at that later in the pod. It's not great. It is not great at all. I mean, if we look back on this week in Rangers, obviously, Birmingham City game on Wednesday night was absolutely piss poor. I mean, it was absolutely genuinely awful. The first half, they passed through us, they ran through us, their centre halves kept just walking through us. I mean, if you watch Dion Sanderson come out with the ball from the back, he looked like prime Alan Hansen, prime Franz Beckenbauer, the way he was allowed to play. He was just allowed to, to move through the gears, move through the attacking players, move through the midfield players, and just play the ball to whoever he wanted. It was quite disappointing, really. For me, the worrying thing that came out of Wednesday night was not so much the starting 11, because I think the starting 11 was very, very much not a strongest possible starting 11. Although, to name a strongest possible starting 11 from this squad is quite hard. I think it was about experimentation. I think it was about looking at strength in depth. And that's something that does actually worry me, guys, is what is happening with the strength in depth of this squad. If you look at the strength in depth in the Rangers squad, you could say the goalkeeping position is quite strong with Liam Kelly backing up Jack Butland. But after that, you're kind of looking at, Dujon Sterling, James Tavernier, Adam Devine. Realistically, not great. The centre halves, Balogun, King, Suter and Davis, not great. Ridvan is good, don't get me wrong. I like Ridvan. I think he's a very good player. Jeff Hefte, still very young, can't defend. Don't write him off. He'll get better. Robbie Fraser, decent. Barron, Diamande, Raskin injured again. Dowell, again, the strength and depth's not great there. The wingers now, Tierney, McCausland, Scott Wright. The Scott Wright situation scares the crap out of me. Matondo, Cortez, not looking great. Tenroll, Lawrence, Lowry, because Cameron Hadji are off. So again, not great. Strikers, Dessers, Danilo, Igman, not great. So the strength in depth for me is not really there at this stage. I think there's still an awful lot of business to do. Really there is. CJ and I says, still don't understand the Birmingham lineup. If the main team was in Glasgow, that should have been labelled as the B team. CJ, great shout. I think because obviously, the situation was that, that Diamande played, that a number of what you would describe as first teamers, had Ridvan played in that. You couldn't really name it as a B team, I think. Tav allegedly won't go unless he's paid off for what would have been his testimonial next year, talking 1 million if true. Bluebells, if that's true, that is absolutely disgusting. That is absolutely dreadful of James Tavernier. Especially if he's pocketing that 1 million. I'm hoping that money will be going to charity. But if that's the case, Bluebells, that is fucking disgusting. And he needs calling out for it, because that is absolutely dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. The amount of money that man has taken out of our club at 30 grand a week, I think for him to say that he's not going unless he's paid off for a testimonial is absolutely disgusting and just shows what an absolute mercenary he is. And I hope, if that is true, Tav FC, Tav fanboys, take note. All those you who love Tav because he's all a Rangers. He's a Rangers hero. He's a Rangers legend. Go fuck yourselves. We need so many players for so many positions, and we are skint. It's not a way to run a club like Rangers. Wonder if Bennett will go on Rangers TV with his stadium update or a handwritten statement to the press next week. This is another thing. There's so much to talk about, isn't there? Guys, those of you who are season ticket holders, do you know where you're sitting at Hampden? Have you been told where you're sitting at Hampden, where your tickets have been transferred to yet? The first game is the 10th of August, which is, as of Saturday, will only be a week away, which I think is pathetic. The club haven't spoken to you about, where you're going to sit or where would you like to sit in Hampden. It's just awful. John Bennett said he would come back with an update on things before the end of July. Well, we're getting pretty close to the end of July. It's on Wednesday, so he's got until Wednesday to come out and speak. I still think the way that John Bennett has conducted this off-season, this pre-season, has been absolutely disgusting. He's chairman of Rangers, and yet he's been silent. He said nothing. He hasn't appeared once. He hasn't given an interview yet. He hasn't talked to the fans. He hasn't talked to the media. He's talked to nobody. And to say this is a man who's supposed to lead our club, and there's the key word, lead our club. I don't think we've got enough leaders in this club, both off the field and on the field. It's disgusting. And John Bennett is, for me, just not fit to run this club. He really isn't. Should have money, but the question is, what are the board up to? If we don't strengthen soon, we are indeed agreed. Watch the match against Berlin. If anyone says Tav needs to stay and start, needs to have their head looked at, he is done. Father Time has caught up to him. Time to move on. Agreed. Tav had better now be captain for the new season ahead if he's still around, Owen. Agreed. Preseason is just about fitness, in my opinion. Stephen, I don't agree. As a coach, as someone who's coached the start of pre-season is, when you first get your players back into training and you work with them, and the first couple of games is about fitness. But once you start to get into games 3 and 4, 5, if you've got them, it's about establishing patterns of play. It's about establishing tactics. It's about establishing a core of a team. It's about knowing your best 11. It's about putting the best 11 out there to start to bond. You know, so at the end of the day, I honestly think that it's not just about fitness, mate. And that's coming from a coaching point of view. And I haven't coached for a couple of years, but that's coming from a coaching point of view. I think, we do need a no-nonsense centre-back. Absolutely, 100% we do need a no-nonsense centre-back. Good evening, Alex. How you doing? Look, we've made a guy who cost 125,000 a multi-millionaire. Absolutely. If that, like I said, Bluebells, if what you're hearing is true, look, I'm not saying it isn't. I'm not saying it isn't. Genuinely not saying what you're saying isn't. It's disgusting. It's disgraceful. He needs calling out for it. When is our leader going to address us? Great shout. Good question, John. Lee Wallace is more of a legend. He stayed and ruined his career for this football club. That's what a legend is. He stayed through administration. When do any of the board talk to the fans? They don't. They just take us for granted. Geordie, that's why I've just ordered the new Rangers third kit. And I'm sorry to say I ordered it from Castor, direct from Castor, because I don't want to give this board any more of my money. The board should also approach Souness to be CEO. Now the position is vacant. He'd have the best. I think getting Graham Souness involved would be a good shout, Pete. A really, really good shout, in my opinion. 100%. I'd rather have their preseason results than ours. It does matter, our morale especially. What's definition of a supporter? We are the people. Absolutely. Paid average wages, high wages, disgusting. Get Tav gone. I agree. Should sack the chairman, not fit for the job. I'd sack all the board, says Sean. It does look nice. Yeah, I have ordered one all day. So let's look at that Birmingham game, and it was just a genuinely dreadful performance. And I think, when you kind of look at it and you kind of say, well, what changed the game for us on Wednesday night? It was Scott Wright. I mean, if you're relying on Scott Wright to come off the bench and change a game, then that's a little bit worrying for me. That is a bit concerning. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't think Scott Wright is going anywhere. I think Scott Wright is here for the long haul, or at least until his contract ends, because the manager does seem to like Scott Wright. And that's quite concerning. Scott Wright, look, he's looked decent in pre-season. In build-up play, he's looked good. Going at players, he's looked good. But his end product is pretty poor. At the end of the day, my worry is that he's going to play Scott Wright as a 10 and or even play Scott Wright ahead of Tierney. And that's quite worrying. That really is quite worrying. Tav is in the Hall of Fame with the likes of Super Ali, Sandy Jardine, and more my time, Davo and Shagger. Caleb, I think it's disgusting that Tav's in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I'll be honest with you, though, Caleb. I don't think anyone who is playing should be in the Hall of Fame. I think, in America, they have the Hall of Fame for all their sports. Okay, so they have the NFL, the NHL, the NBA Hall of Fame, and the MLB Hall of Fame. And quite a few clubs have their own halls of fame as well, or teams have their own halls of fame. But to get into the Hall of Fame, you've got to have been retired for 3 years before you're eligible for entry into the Hall of Fame. So I genuinely don't like and look, I'm not saying that Tav, it's an absolute disgrace he's in the Hall. What I'm saying is he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame because players who are playing for the club shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. If you're playing still, you should not be in the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame should be something you get into after you've retired. And I'm not talking about the season after you've retired. I'm talking about 2 or 3 years down the line when, in the cold light of day, you can dispassionately look at a player's career, what the player achieved with the club, what the player did with the club, and then make a decision on who should be in the Hall of Fame. It shouldn't be taken on the back of a good season or the back of a few good seasons. It should be taken once that player's career has ended for me. And that's why I don't think Tav should be in the Hall of Fame at this moment in time. Whether he should be long-term, that's the point. You shouldn't, like I said, you should have to wait to get into the Hall of Fame. With Campbell going, Lawrence allegedly off ski next week, does it mean the end of the number 10 in the PC team? Bluebells, I'd love to see the end of a number 10 in the PC team. I don't think the number 10 works. I genuinely don't. And I don't think we've got a player good enough in the squad to play in the number 10 role. I mean, personally, I would like to see a 4-3-3. I'd like to see a flat three in the middle. So Dio in the middle with Barron one side, Raskin or a new signing or Sterling if we buy a new right back, somebody either side of Dio to allow Dio to go create. That's what I'd like to see, so that we match up with McGregor, Hatate and O'Reilly. We go head to head with them. We don't get overrun in midfield. We control and we press their midfield and press them high and press them up the park and push them back to take control of the midfield. That's what I'd like to see. So if that's the case, that Cantwell's going, that Lawrence is going, that Hadji's going, and that leaves only Lowry, then yeah, it perhaps does spell the end of the number 10. But I think the one slight downside to Philippe Clement, Bluebells, is he's very tactically rigid. He doesn't seem to want to change from that 4-2-3-1 formation that he plays. So I can't see us getting rid of the 10, if I'm being honest. You don't learn nothing winning every game in pre-season. Your strongest 11, it's about systems and players. It is about systems. Absolutely. I agree. It's about systems. ICJ with the same shit defense, leaking goals. It's the same every season. We are a week away from home. Important. Agreed. Alan says, if Tav stays, he'll be in the Hall of Shame. He is done. Seen on Rangers TV, we used to have Rangers Sports Show, but stopped in 1960. First time I ever knew about it. Did you hear Lawrence post-match interview? He sounded like a dead man walking. Tav's only captain. He's had that many doings from Celtic. Duncan, how you doing? Sort the defence out and we'll have enough to beat the Jam Tarts on Saturday. Look, I think personally that, if we could get the defence right, I think we have got enough to beat Hearts. I mean, to be honest with you, I think we've got more than enough to beat most teams in the SPL. I do agree that this team is far from perfect. I do agree that, this team is not great at this moment in time. But the thing you kind of look at this is, I think the thing we sometimes forget as Rangers fans is just how shit everyone else in the SPL is. With the exception of Celtic, and even the likes of Hearts and Aberdeen and Kilmarnock aren't that great at teams. They're not great teams. They're not top teams. They're not teams that we should be fearing. So for me, we've probably got enough to beat them because they're that bad. They're not good football teams. They're genuinely piss poor. Where it kind of falls down for Rangers is against Celtic and is in Europe. And that's where the squad needs to be built up, to be honest with you, to take on Celtic, to take on Europe. Like I said, you've probably got enough. Even Dessers is enough, probably. And Scott Wright is enough to beat shite like St Johnstone, Hibs, Dundee United, Ross County. They are shit. They're absolute shit. And I think we've probably got enough to beat them. But it's when you go against those teams like Celtic, like in Europe, where you need top-class defenders, top-class strikers, top-class midfielders to rebuild the team. And I think that's where this team is lacking, if I'm being wholly honest. Wish we could play with two up front, because when you play with two up front, you give centre-halves something to think about. When teams play with one up top, centre-halves have an easier time. I think, Pete, that's the whole idea of him wanting this 10 that's more a central 10 that will link up more effectively and at times run past the 9. That's what he kind of wants from his 10. He doesn't want a 10 that roams everywhere. Now, we saw a bit more, I thought, on Saturday from Lawrence, not doing as much of the roaming, the tracking back. He was more central. He was more pushed forward. I think that's what Clement wants from his 10. He doesn't want them wandering to the wing like Cantwell does. He doesn't want them dropping all the way deep to go and fetch the ball like Lawrence was doing, or like Cantwell does to some degree as well. He wants them to stay further up the pitch, be more linked and in union with the striker. And I think that's kind of where he wants to go. A rebuild with loan signings, loss. Okay, whatever. Defense is going to cost us badly. The defense is not great, but I think it's enough to get past the shit teams. I really do. Hearts got beat 3-0 by Fleetwood, 100 degrees. Central defence and right back absolutely are very much the priority. That is the big priority for me. Yeah, I agree. We do need a right back to back up the central defender. We do need a new centre back. I agree, 100%. Duncan McCarricher, thank you. Whoa, thank you so much for this very genuine. What the hell is happening? Very generous, that's the word I'm looking for. Donation, £10 on the good podcast. Don't keep up the good work. Thank you, Duncan. That is so kind of you. Reminder, all super chats, super thanks, super stickers go to help running the channel. So thank you so much for that. Look, we go. I mean, the Birmingham game. I think we've got to remember Birmingham are a League One team. I know you hear that Birmingham spent 13 million this summer. Birmingham spent this. Birmingham spent that. But Birmingham were relegated from the Championship last season. That's how bad Birmingham are. They're not a good team. They're really not a good team, and they were pretty awful last season. I think Chris Davis has got the club moving in the right direction. I think they will probably come straight back up to the Championship next season. Of course I do, but it's still, for a team like Rangers who've got aspirations to qualify for a Champions League, got aspirations to be in the Europa League, to lose to Birmingham City is pretty humiliating at the end of the day. We did make them like prime Barca at times, absolutely. Now, obviously, moving forward to yesterday's game. Yesterday's game was a very, very strange game. It was a very odd game. There were positives to take from yesterday's game. I think there were positives. You know what? You've got to kind of at times look for the positives, because if you don't look at the positives, you can go flipping mad. I thought Dio was class yesterday. I thought Barron was class yesterday. I thought they looked really good. And I think, you know, as I've mentioned numerous times on these videos, at the end of the day, it's about, for me, those two going forward and being the future of this team, being the future, you know, midfield of this team. They're that good. I think, you know, this is a real quality pair. Yes, the quality pair. Dessers did well yesterday. Yes, as Geordie says, the enigma was back. I thought attacking-wise, we looked good. I saw more patterns of attacking play yesterday than I've seen all pre-season. You know, there was kind of like the leash had been taken off. And, you know, as much as I hate saying this because it's turning into Michael Beale, the handbrake had kind of come off a little bit, and they played with a bit more freedom going forward and looked a lot better going forward for me. So that is encouraging. And, you know, with the fact we've got Václav Černý to come into the team as well, that is good. Tom Barnes played really well yesterday. He did. Hopefully he can kick on. Clearly has a great technical abilities, plus one of the few players we have that shoots from outside the box. I agree, Pete. I agree. He did look good yesterday. You know, he looked better than he's looked all pre-season. So, you know what? There is a lot of positives from that aspect. The attacking play was a lot better. And that's why I'm kind of encouraged by the fact that we've probably got enough, even with the fact this squad isn't good enough to beat Celtic, I don't think, or to progress in the Champions League. It's probably still enough to beat Hibs, to beat Hearts, to beat Dundee United, to beat St Johnstone, Aberdeen, to beat the likes of Ross County, who are just shit. You know, it's enough to beat those guys because they're genuinely that bad. They genuinely are that bad. Is Hefte born a Mark II? No, he's not. I think he's still a young player. He's still learning the game. I think what you got to kind of remember, guys, is in Brazil, fullbacks are not really brought up to defend. They're brought up to be extra attackers, aren't they? You know, Cafu and Roberto Carlos were fantastic going forward, but they were never particularly good going backwards, were they? So at the end of the day, I just think Hefte needs time. He needs time to be coached. He needs time to be brought on. He needs time to be developed. He needs time to get better. So for me, Hefte, I think it's too soon to write him off. It's too soon to call him born a Mark II. He needs time. He just needs time to get used to. I mean, he's changed countries. He's changed football styles. He needs more work on his defense. Well, you've seen that. You've seen from how he defends. And, you know, perhaps in Brazil, you get away with that a little bit more because it's all about attack in Brazil. You know, you probably get away from that in the Cypriot League because it's, you know, even weaker than ours. So, you know, to that degree, you probably get away with it a little bit more. But, you know, against the teams we've played, Ajax, Manchester United, and Union Berlin, who are decent teams, you know, you got to remember that even Man United, if they're playing a bunch of kids, or they're playing Jadon Sancho, who's, you know, really figured, or Casemiro, or, you know, whoever, they're still probably 99% better than most of the teams in the SPL. So, you know, they're good players. So, you know, he has come up against a tough test in pre-season. I just hope that Philippe Clement doesn't see him as a starter this season. I think Ridvan has to start left back. Ridvan is by far and away the best left back at the club. He has to start for me on Saturday. Yeah, apart from leaking the goals yesterday, I did see plenty of improvement in certain areas. That's right, Philippe. We did. And I thought, you know, on the whole, apart from the defence was awful. The defence was rank rotten yesterday. The fullbacks were both dreadful. The centre-backs were dreadful. The whole back four unit was absolutely awful. And if you look at the goals we conceded, if you go back and actually watch, including the penalty, it's all down to mistakes by the defence. It's not down to any particularly amazing play from Union Berlin that you go, wow, look at that. It's down to the fact that our defenders were genuinely that piss poor. Tav, one of the worst before. I read something earlier. I can't remember where it was. was on one of the Rangers websites saying that Tav played well yesterday. And I just kind of read it and thought, what game were you watching? Were you watching a rerun of something from from the 55 season or something? Because he said he was absolutely garbage yesterday. He was a 1 out of 10 at very best. So I don't know what they were watching. So I thought the fullbacks were both poor. They didn't track. They didn't go with their men. They just showed no intelligence. There was a moment in the second half where I think it was Berlin's fourth goal where Tav's got a guy running at him, and this guy is a left winger playing on the left side with he's right-footed, and instead of pushing him outside, so as a fullback, one of the things you're taught to do as a fullback is if you've got a player coming at you, is force him onto his weaker foot. Force him outside or force him into the body. If he's a right footer player, if he's a right footer playing on the right, force him to come off his right foot. Force him to be uncomfortable. If he's a right footer playing on the left, you force him outside. You push him out because then he can't be as effective. But if you go back and watch it, what does Tav do? He forces him and allows him to come inside, allows him to get a shooting position, allows him to shoot right-footed, and a goal results. It's just brain dead defending, absolute brain dead defending. From James Tavernier. Would be against Hefte playing in midfield because Hefte going backwards is shocking, going forward. Geordie, I mean, it's worth thinking about. I think, we've obviously got Cortez and Cheney there, but, it's worth thinking about. If Cortez can't manage 90 minutes, is Hefte a better possibility to play on the left? For me, good shout. This was good yesterday, but I can't stomach another season of him cutting in and out. We need someone like Shanklin, says the Dream Crusher. We do need a proven striker. I don't know what's going to happen with the striker. If I'm being really honest, I know what I'm hearing from some people is that Rangers have settled with the 3 strikers they've got with Danilo, Dessers and Igman. Others are saying they're still looking at Rachmani. They're still looking to, some people are saying they're looking at Shankland. I don't think they're looking at Shankland, but who knows? I'd go give the captaincy to young Barron. It's always a great thing to have a young Scottish player captaining Rangers like Advocat did with Barry Ferguson. Both have the same tenacious attributes in centre midfield. That's an interesting one from Pete. Going by pre-season, this season will depend on Diamande and Barron. Agree. Diamande and Barron are great. If the board are messing around with Big Phil, there's not much Big Phil can do about it. It's them. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Tav scored over 100 goals and won 1 league. If he's not gone in this window, we're in bigger trouble than I thought. It's sad the dross we are getting hit with, says Scott. I agree with that one. Tav's only actually scored 58 goals if you take off his penalties. Yeah, absolutely. Sean, I just can't see it happening, buddy. I can't see it happening. We did score 4 very good goals, and that's the positive that I've just taken out of it. That we do have a more positively attacking side of the game has looked better yesterday. It was the defense that let us down. Defense let us down massively yesterday. And, it's huge. It's huge, that part of the game for us. One of the positive side we did. Absolutely. Derek Ferguson thinks that Clement will walk away from this character. Could be a possibility, Scott. Tav is defensively abysmal. Anyone who says otherwise is a clueless clown. True, but it's not the best time. Besides, I think Big Phil is the right man for the job, but not the board, in my opinion, Alex. Yeah, agreed. Look, I'd second Barron's captaincy. I mean, it's an interesting one. He's clear. I mean, the one thing I'll say about Barron is that he speaks exceptionally well. He has a very mature head, on young shoulders. He really does. So for me, I can't see why not. It would be a decent shout. I think perhaps he needs a little bit more time with the club. But look, at the end of the day, for me, it's a positive. It's a big positive. He is very good. I'm very impressed with him. I really am. Really am impressed with him, the way he's gone about his business. And like I said, the way he talks is very impressive as well. Listen, Rangers have got 3 days to sign players, or we go into the Champions League with this shambles. That was on the park for every game this summer. Wow. Scott, I agree. We do need to sign players. We do need some reinforcements before Thursday, before the UEFA Champions League squads have to be submitted. Look, if you look at the defence as it stands at this moment in time, this is the defensive squad as it is at this moment in time. This is our defensive depth. So we've got Tavernier. These are players currently at the club. Tavernier, Sterling, King, Suter, Davis, Balogun, Nsiala, Ridvan, Hefte, Fraser, and Devine. So that's our defence. Okay, that's our defence. Blue Nose, I haven't heard anything about the rumour takeover. Nothing at all. I will look into it. 109 people watching, guys. Please smash that like. So, Tavernier. Sterling, King. I mean, realistically, Divine as well. That's the right back room. So that's our right backs. I would say out of those right backs, you've got one starter. You've got one starter and one starter only, and that's Dujon Sterling. The other three are not starters. They're just not good enough to start. And that's a worry. I think we still need to get a backup right back. We do need a backup to Dujon Sterling. The worrying thing, obviously, about Dujon is that he is injured. And that's a big concern, that Dujon does seem to be getting injured an awful lot. That is a major worry for me. That is a major worry. So then you've got Suter, Davis, Balogun, and Ciala, and to some degree as well, obviously, Leon King. So you look at that, and if I said to you guys, who is the best central defender we have out of those four? Okay, I'm not going to include King in this because Philippe Clement has said that he sees King as more a right back, which is really interesting. That he actually thinks that King will make a better right back than central defender, which, like I said, it is fascinating for me. Case. So, out of those four, who is our best central defender? You know, who would you say is the strongest out of those? And I agree, yes, Scott, we do need a Bassey style centre back. We need someone strong, someone physical. I'm going to put a poll up. Who is our best centre back? So you've got Suter, you've got Sutty, you've got Ben Davis, you've got Balogun, and you've got, obviously, Ciala as well. So what I'd like you to do, guys, vote in the poll for me. The poll's up and running now, or it should be. Yes, it is. Who is our best centre-back? Vote in the poll. Personally, Balogun is the best centre-back out of those four centre-backs. That little group that we've got there is Balogun. And what's worrying for me is that that's a 36-year-old that you're then relying on for a full season. And that's worrying. That is genuinely worrying, that you are relying on a 36-year-old. Because the other thing I kind of see is that if you look at good teams, good football teams, and look at the great Rangers teams of the past, you've always had a leader at the back. You've always had someone at the back who is a leader, someone who is a leader of men, someone who is a top player to really pull them together, to communicate, to lead, to get that back four working as a unit. And for me, Balogun is probably the most obvious candidate there out of those four, but that's concerning because realistically, Big Leon, and I'll be absolutely honest with you, I adore Big Leon. I love Big Leon to bits. He's a Rangers man through and through. He is absolutely fantastic. I mean, he is just, for me, I love him. I love him to bits. You know, he's got Rangers. You just listen. I mean, if you listen to him after that Birmingham game, that's not good enough. If you think that's good enough, you've got to take a long, hard look at yourself. You know, and all that. The way he speaks, the way he talks, the way he understands what it is to be a Rangers player. For me, he is a leader, and he is the only leader out of those four. You know, and that's concerning. You know, Ciala is not ready. He isn't ready. Davis, for me, can't cope with the physical side of the game. If you look at Ben Davis, he looks not too bad in Europe. But why is that? Because it's not really a physical experience in Europe. You're given a bit more time on the ball in Europe, a bit more time to bring the ball out from the back in Europe. So that's why Davis doesn't look as bad. Suter's got a mistake in him all the time. I like John Suter. Don't get me wrong. I think he carries the ball out from the back. I think he's all right. And if you ask me who are our strongest two at this moment in time, if you ask me to pick the strongest two, my strongest two, not Philippe Clement's strongest two, my strongest two, I would go with Suter and Balogun as the strongest two at the back out of those four. But I genuinely think that is a real position of concern. The left back position, I'm not so worried about the left back position. I think Ridvan has more than got that left back position covered. So for me, you know, you look at the centre backs, you look at the right back, and you just haven't got enough there. I think we need two centre backs. I think one in this window is an absolute must. Second one probably January or next year, but we do need at least one commanding leader centre back, or we are in shit, genuinely. Pete McLeod says it would be a great statement for the club to make Barron Rangers captain. Perhaps this will happen in time once he gets more games for the club. Looks like a future captain to me. Pete, I think that's a great shout. I think, once he's perhaps got a season under his belt, that will maybe something the club will consider. I think it's Suter overall. Personally, his injuries have worked against him and we don't play him on the right, which he plays better in. Although, Brian, he did play on the right yesterday and he was pretty shit. We are in big trouble, I'm afraid to say, so it's heartbreaking. All or most Rangers fans' heads are scrambled. Bluebell says, Big Leon has hardly had a look in pre-season. Seems clear to me PC is going to go with Soapy and Davis. I heard Davis has had an excellent pre-season and PC likes him. I don't think he has had a pre-season, an excellent pre-season. I think he's been piss poor. I mean, you look at the Ajax game, he was responsible for at least one of the goals in that game. He was responsible for goals yesterday. He's not looked good at all. Yeah, I agree. Take his captaincy off him, see if he wants to stay. Left back is more than covered. Ridvan, Hefte and Fraser, although it's known PC is converting Fraser to a left winger. Yeah, I think it is more than covered, Bluebells. And even when I did the defensive crisis video a few weeks ago, I did say that the left back slot and the goalkeeper slots were two that didn't really concern me. We don't need two CBs unless you mean upgrades, which I, of course, agree. Defo need another right back. Yeah, Brian, I mean upgrades. We need two upgrades on what we've got. We need to follow the money. I disagree massively with that statement, hugely with that statement. Ridvan goes outside, he comes inside, he can go past a man, he can put a cross in the box, he can play a ball, he can defend, he goes backwards well. So I don't see that at all, mate. I don't see that at all. Talking off the field, I don't absolutely agree. Davis has been poor in the preseason games. Absolutely, he has been. He hasn't. Yeah, Davis doesn't. Davis has got no. Of course, he hasn't. Why would he? He gets paid 27 grand a week by Rangers. He ain't going to get 27 grand a week in the Championship of anyone. Not even if he went to Leeds United or Sheffield United or Sunderland or any of the big clubs in the Championship, he wouldn't get 27 grand a week. So I agree. It's not. Ridvan is an exceptional player. Ridvan is a class act. I don't get anyone criticising Ridvan. I think he's a top player. The only thing you can criticise Ridvan on is his fitness. That's the only thing you can criticise him on is the fact he gets injured a little bit too much. But hopefully that's changed by Philippe. If I'm being honest, really honest, looking at, if people are fit and if people are, and we don't sign anyone else between now and Saturday, this is what I think Clement will go with on Saturday against Hearts. Butland in goal, Sterling if fit, Suter, Davis and Ridvan, Barron and Diamande, Cortez, Lawrence, Tierney and Dessers. That's how I think he will go. That's the 11 I think he could well pick against Hearts. The fullback positions don't really worry me. If you start Ridvan and Sterling, it doesn't worry me. If he starts Hefte against Hearts, I'm worried. I am genuinely worried because I think they've got players that will absolutely rip him a new one. Sterling has to start right back. If he starts Tav on Saturday, it's done. It's over. Suter and Davis do worry me. They do genuinely worry me. Dio and Barron, a class act. Cortez and Tierney, I think. Cortez, we'll talk about Cortez in a minute. I do want to touch on Cortez, but that's what I think he'll go with on Saturday, if I'm being honest about that. Geordie says in the live chat, Ridvan is a brilliant player, but don't understand why he hasn't been put into the Turkish international side. But then again, Geordie, did you see their left back in the Euros? He was very good. Very, very good. We should have sold Butland and kept McCrory as backup to Kelly. Butland doesn't look as if he wants to be here, says Stuart. I mean, that's a controversial one. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't rate Kelly as good enough to be the starter. And Philippe quite clearly rates Jack Butland as the best keeper in Scotland. So, I don't know. I agree, Dream Crusher. Some of the contracts have been massively negligent. If that's the lineup, I'll throw my window. Mate, so will I. So will I. Yeah, I agree with you, Janet. I think that's the worrying thing. And if Bluebells is correct, I think that's a worry. Big Phil was centre half. It's surprising that he wasn't the first thing he sorted out when he took the job. Even more surprising, he still hasn't addressed the issue. And he said he's not worried. Yeah, that is a bit of a concern, Pete. The only thing I'd say about that, mate, is that he realistically is not going to come out and say the defence is shit. We need to sign defenders, because he's going to therefore destroy his defenders' morale. He won't throw his players under the bus, so I genuinely couldn't see that happening. Fans right now are a joke. Some believe in negative. It's unreal. Being concerned about certain things is one thing, but completely throwing the toys out the pram before the ball is kicked and blaming Phil. Brian, spot on. Go back and watch the podcast I did the other day where I speak about Phil Clement, and even where I've got people in the live chat saying that I'm not right. I back Big Phil. I think in time he will get it right, but he needs time. The problem with Big Phil, and I think you can kind of copy and paste what's happening at Manchester United with Ten Hag to some degree with this, is that Big Phil is being asked to do stuff and work miracles with players that are not his players. He's been asked to win leagues, win cups, progress in Europe with a squad that isn't good enough, with a squad that's not his squad, with squad that doesn't suit his style of play. I mean, go back to last season, Brian, and he said 4 players in the squad were good enough to play the way he wants to play week in, week out. That tells a story, doesn't it? And then when he does the interview at the start of this season, he says the only player that's not for sale is Jack Butland. Again, tells a massive story. So I've got no doubt in my mind that Big Phil is the right man for the job, mate. I think he's a very good manager, and I think he will get things right, but he needs time and he needs backing if he's going to get there. Dream Crusher, cannot see it happening, mate. I think the amount of money that Plymouth will want for him, we've got no chance. We have to believe and get behind Clement. I believe he's a vision for the club, but cannot do it all. Absolutely agreed. I think him and Coppen have got a real vision for this club. As I spoke about on the video yesterday when I talked about Hadji leaving and Coppen's vision for the future, the Coppen experience. You know, he has a vision. Coppen has clearly got a vision for redeveloping this squad, for re-energizing, for revolutionizing this squad. And I think give them time, give them 2-3 windows. You'll be looking at a very different Rangers with a very different style of play, with a very positive outlook, with a much bigger budget to go and buy players. You'll be looking at a Rangers that I think will be more on a financial level with the likes of Ajax, PSV Eindhoven, Feyenoord, Benfica, Sporting Lisbon, FC Porto. You know, that sort of level. You know, because we know that the top 5 leagues are unobtainable. You look at the top 5 leagues in Europe, you know, the Bundesliga, Serie A, the EPL, La Liga, and obviously Liga 1. You look at those leagues and they are head and shoulders above anything else because they've got so much more money than everyone else. So much more money. The EPL, for example, is in a different planet on its own. The amount of money that is down south of the border is ridiculous. I mean, people talk about PSR and FFP. Look at what they're still spending on players. Manchester United, 42 million on Lenny Yoro, 30 odd million on Xerxes. I think they've signed some more players today. I think they spent upwards of 100 million already. So, you know, the money is there. Aston Villa even have spent 20, 30, 40, 50 million this summer. So, you know, the money down there is ludicrous. But where we've got to be looking and competing is on the same level as Holland, Belgium, Portugal, those leagues. And realistically, there's no reason why a club the size of Rangers, and to some degree the other side of the city as well, can't have similar turnovers and compete at the same level if they're managed correctly, if they're budgeted correctly, if they're built correctly, like PSV, like Ajax, like Feyenoord, like Benfica, Sporting Lisbon, FC Porto. For me, Coppen is building that type of ethos and that business model in Rangers, and that for me is massively positive for me. He has showed the fans last season. He did. He said he wants a complete. It does take more than one window. Agreed. Is there no centre backs playing in the Scottish league that can make a step up for us? Surely we could buy within our own league. I mean, we had Lewis Mayo. For me, that would have been definitely someone we should have kept. 100%. Wright frightened you. The fact he's still there is unbelievable. Janet, I am slightly concerned about Scott Wright. I've got to say, I agree, Alan Austin. Why didn't he go for him? I am slightly concerned about the whole Scott Wright situation, how he is still in this squad, and the fact that Big Phil seems to really like him. Spot on, Brian. It's a fickle world, and some of the social media comments from our players are embarrassing. It's not a good look for Rangers fans. Support the team, says Pete. The best keeper in Scotland wants away. He's not that good. SPL is number 17. It says Sean in the coefficient. I think it is money. You talk crap. Who I talk crap? Scott. I'm talking crap. Am I? Okay. We need the Champions League money first. Owen with a shit defense will qualify. It'd be a miracle. We do need Champions, but I think that Coppen, we'll get there. We'll get there. Absolutely, we'll get there. Scott says, yes, he has signed a few players, but give them time. I agree. How much he spent? He hasn't spent a lot. But I think, if you give him time to build that higher income revenue than any of those clubs you mentioned, different story on our expenditure, in particular salaries. Bluebells, and I think that's correct. You look at the fact we lost to PSV last season, and they had a lower salary budget than we did. Our salary budget was higher than theirs, and they absolutely smashed us. And I think, for me, it's about getting to their level by doing what Coppen's done. And Coppen was basically, he was chief of recruitment at PSV. I know John de Jong is their technical director, but he was the guy who went and found these players for de Jong. And I think, I think that is what we're looking for. We're looking for Coppen building a squad, building a team, building a business model, a trading model that will enable us to have a big budget, a bigger budget. If we can bring in players like Diamande for 4 million and sell them for 15, 20 million, if we can bring in someone like Cortez, sign him for 4 million, sell him for 15 to 20 million, you're looking at, straight away there, 10, 15 million pound profit on 2 players. 20 to 30 million coming into the budget. You then sell on perhaps academy profit. You could generate 40, 45, 50 million. The more money you get, the higher level of player you can purchase, the higher fee you can then charge, and the greater the budget works. And that, I think, is where this club are heading. Heard a rumour about the takeover. There is one going around, that Israeli guy, but I don't know a great deal about it, mate. One of the problems is PC buying players that aren't starters. Building for the future sounds good, but we need starters first. We do need some starters, 100%. Wages killed Rangers. Yeah, that's another thing. We do need to clear some of this dead wood. Heard Aris Thessaloniki are making... Yeah, I've heard that as well. It's not... invest in a scout. Good one, Alan. Yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah, it wasn't built. Scott, the one thing I always say to people who always say to me, Rome wasn't built in a day. Yeah, but it was burnt down in one. But no, Coppen does need time. He will not. This is not. Clermont and Coppen cannot put this club on the same track as Ajax, PSV, Feyenoord, FC Porto, Benfica, Sporting Lisbon in one transfer window. They can't do it in 2. It's going to take 3, 4 windows to get this right. And I think a lot of fans underestimate the damage that was done by previous managers and by previous regimes. I mean, Ross Wilson has a lot to answer for. Stuart Robertson has a lot to answer for. They have ruined this club massively. Massively has done it hugely. They were, and that's the issue. We've got too many players who are earning too much money who are not good enough to earn that money. I'll already tip my hat to Coppen if that Cifuentes deal is true and that Lammers deal already confirmed. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Coppen is it's like I said on the video the other day. Coppen is doing business like a 21st century director of recruitment. He's not doing it like Rangers have previously been doing it. He's not going to be allowing 9, 10 players to walk for nothing. He's not going to be allowing players to take all the money and then we sell them for nothing. He's putting in place deals that make money for the club, that have increments in them. So that if those players perform for their clubs, we get more money. And then if they then sell them on, we get a percentage of the sale. And that is how modern clubs do it. That's how you make money. And that is what Coppen is doing. Geordie says, if there is some form of takeover to be done, it should be done the way the German league is, 50+1. That's a good shout. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to play in the EPL. I think in 3 years we'd be in the top 4. It's big. It's great. Big Phil's signing young players, took the balls to do it in his time, proves he's building something for the benefit of the club, not just a quick fix job, which is what he said. Yes, he will be in charge of contract renewals, Charles. Absolutely. He's the director of recruitment. There's actually a good squad there as long as we go and replace a couple of key positions. Another CM badly needed. Shankland if we can get a good fee for Dessers and a centre-back, says Brian. Yeah, absolutely. That doesn't include salaries, bonuses, and that's another thing we don't get our heads around. We don't necessarily see, is the whole situation with the fact that players get goal bonuses, win bonuses. If they score 15 goals, 20 goals, they probably get bonuses, performance bonuses. There's a whole bonus structure in place there as well. Absolutely. Yeah, that is what I'm saying, Brian. I think give this 2-3 windows, 4 windows, maybe, this club could be massively turned around. We could be looking at a club that, like I said, can compete with FC Porto, can compete with Sporting, Benfica, PSV, Ajax, and Feyenoord, for example. That's where I think we're aiming for. And building even like a Borussia Dortmund style model. I mean, the worry for me, realistically, is that Danilo is months away as well. Cortez is lacking sharpness. Going into this game at the weekend, the fact that those two players who are, two of our probably most talented attacking players, are lacking the sharpness. And people talk about, Cortez's inability to track back, but, his match fitness is not there yet. Again, this is a player coming back. I don't think he is, Charles, no. I think his inability to track back, and going forward, I've got no worries about Cortez, but he needs time to get his match fitness. The fact that we're talking about Danilo not being fully match fit until about October time, is a concern. It is a worry for me. That's one thing we do need to work on, is the fitness side and getting these players match fit and ready to go. And Clement's going to do that, I suppose, with rotation, and he'll work these players back into this team eventually. And Danilo and Cortez will go on to be successful. I absolutely, think that's a massive one for me. Alex, I gotta say I agree with you. I don't think Shankland's coming. I think a lot of what we read about Shankland is lazy media, lazy journalism, clickbait journalism, and it's also fan-driven. I think a lot of it is fan-driven. I don't know, Ewan, maybe. Igman being dismissed as Dross is wild to me. I think he'll come on the scene. Yeah, I agree, Brian. It's going to take time. He's not fit enough to play. He's not match fit. He's lacking a basic level of fitness. That's something we're working on with him. Everyone seems to forget that Gerrard had 3 windows with us before he won 55. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Agreed. 100% agreed. Things were going great after 55. Can't believe how far we've fallen behind in 2 years. Dream Crusher, I agree, but that's part of what we're talking about here. It's the mismanagement of the club. It's the mismanagement of the contracts. It's the mismanagement of the signings. It's the mismanagement of the managerial appointments. It's the mismanagement by the board, by Stuart Robertson, by Ross Wilson, by Douglas Park, by John Bennett. Steven Gerrard, didn't he, talked about the whole, fixing the roof while the sun was shining, something we just blatantly didn't do. He signed the guy from Morocco and told us he's up to the level of Scottish football, and we'll be not seeing for a few months what's happening. He needs, like I said, he's not fit enough. He just is not fit enough. He's working at one-to-one on fitness. That's what Clement has said. The board failed to invest after 55. They gave Bill all that money and he spent it on absolute shit. Agreed. Hannibal, I don't know what's happening with Hannibal. The milieu monde. Monde means world. I can't remember what milieu means. Hannibal, I think the complication over Hannibal, as I said on the transfer pod this afternoon, is that Man United want to sell him. They don't want to loan him. They want to sell him. That is a complication. And I don't think we're going to splash 10, 11 million on a player. If Igman is a cop and recruitment exclusively, then it's a good one. His previous with North African players in the Eredivisie has been quite good. Charles, spot on. Sangare, Bakayoko, Sibari, all top players. Top players. Why would Hearts sell their main striker so late in the window? They would need time to find a place. This is what I'm saying, Stuart. I don't think... I think I said Douglas Park and Park Jr. as well. 100%. Scott Miller, he meant in terms of fitness, mate, not skill. What was that comment about? To go back to that one. In fitness, he's not up to it yet. He's not up to it. Robbie Yours just scored a hat-trick for Anderlecht. We don't give our youth players enough of a chance, KP71. Do you know what? That's a brilliant shout. 100%. We don't give young players enough of a chance. I think there's a lot of young players in this academy that have the potential to go on and be very good footballers. For me, you're looking at Bailey Rice, Cole McKinnon, Robbie Fraser, Archie Stevens, Paul Uncio, Zach Lovelace, Leighton Grant, Finley Curtis. There's a lot of players in that academy coming through. Josh Gentles, who are very good footballers. And I would love to see them get more of an opportunity. I would absolutely love to see them get more of an opportunity next season. I'm not saying start them. I'm not saying for a minute Cole McKinnon should be the starting centre midfielder. Sorry. I'm not saying for a minute that Leighton Grant should be our starting centre half. I'm not saying for a minute that Bailey Rice should be our starting 6, or that Finley Curtis or Robbie Fraser should be our starting left winger. But what I am saying is we need to see them play. We need to see them get minutes, because if we don't, we're never going to know if they're good enough. And I think we do need to see more of a drip through of those young players. And if they're not going to use them this season, send them on loan somewhere to get some experience. Gutted if Shankland doesn't sign this week. It's an absolute no-brainer. Signing a proven goal scorer in our league for a team that doesn't create as many chances. Less settling in time too. Pete, it is. Look, I'm not against signing Lawrence Shankland. I just don't think it's going to happen. Don't think it's going to happen. Going back to that poll I launched earlier, who is our best centre-back? 23% of you say Suter, 6% of you say Davis, 69%, 68% of you say Balogun, and 2% very saying Unsiala. Guys, those 2%, you must know something we don't know yet in that vote. Absolutely. Charles Dalrymple says, if Bailey Rice, Archie Stevens and Zach Lovelace can't stay fit, they could easily be around the first team to fill in when needed. Yeah, that's just the thing I want to see. I want to see them play. I want to see these kids given a chance, that they're good enough. Honestly, they're good enough. I honestly feel they're good enough. I'm good enough. Bluebells says something is going on between Rice and PC. Let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope it's not another Todd Cantwell situation, guys. Yeah, absolutely. Should bring all the youth up against teams in the lower half of the table or earlier stages of the cup. Geordie, that's a great shout, mate. That is a great shout. I honestly think that is a great point you make there. You know, this game against St Johnstone in the League Cup, you know, some of these games against some of the crap teams in Scotland, why not get the youngsters involved a little bit more? You know, if we haven't got enough to beat Dundee or Dundee United or St Johnstone or Ross County, then there's something fundamentally wrong with this football club. And that's where we should be trying these young players. Agreed. 100%. 100%. Charles says, as much as I would like Shankland, I think Miovski would fit the position in Clemens. I agree, but that is an absolute no-brainer for me. But he ain't gonna come, mate. He ain't gonna come. We released Ethan Sutherland in the summer. St Mirren snapped him up, put him out on loan, and Man City scouts were watching him. That was on Zeb Jacobs. Yeah, I mean, Zeb Jacobs clearly has made mistakes. He's gone now. That's another thing. Where's our CEO? Where's our director of academy? Rangers fans wouldn't put up a team full of youngsters getting destroyed. Remember how the fans turned on King after the Liverpool game? They get no time to settle in the first team. Yeah, Stuart, I'm not saying start them, mate. I'm saying, you know, drip them in. So, you know, perhaps last 20 minutes against Dundee, last 20 minutes against St Johnstone, last 20 minutes against Ross County. Stick them on. Give them 20 minutes. Give them half an hour. You know, let's see what we've got. You know, I think the testimony to that, guys, if you look at Liverpool last season, when they had all their injuries, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, you know, players like that coming through and playing for their first team and looking, Owen Beck, and looking quality, looking different class. For me, that's what we should be doing. That's what we should be doing. And that's what we need to start doing if we're going to be successful, guys. If we're going to go forward with this club and be successful, use the youth system. Look, we clearly haven't got bucket loads of money at this moment in time. So we do need to use some of the young players. And it may be as well that, you know, Archie Stevens, Bailey Rice come through and they impress. They attract teams from down south. They pay they pay a decent transfer fee for them. We make a big profit because these are players that have come through our academy, players we haven't had to spend money on. So, you know, this is the cycle that we need to be working on. And I think it's going to take a little bit of a change of mindset from some fans in terms of getting their heads around the fact that we are building towards this model. Yes, we need to be winning trophies in the meantime. Of course we do, but we're Rangers. And, you know, like I just said to you, you know, this squad, realistically, on paper, perhaps isn't as good as Celtic, isn't as good as a lot of the European teams we're going to come up against, but it's still better than Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, Killie, which, you know, that's four, I think, who are going to finish in the top six this season for me. They're four of the top six this season for me. We're better than all those. So it's still enough. It's still enough. How are young players supposed to prove the manager that they're either ready for first team football or potentially show themselves? Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Yes, you sign players now to win games, footballs and trophies. 1 year is a long time in the football world. If we signed Shanks in January, we would have won the league. Agreed. Yeah, I agree with that one. 100% agree. Right, I'm going to head off now, guys. I'm going to walk my dog. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined me for this podcast tonight. It's flown by, guys. As always, loved love talking to you. It's amazing and love getting you involved. Thank you again to the 2 donators tonight. Obviously, Robert, who has become a channel member, and Duncan McCurricher for the very generous £10 donation. Thank you so much for that. Really is appreciated. All those super chats when they come in are so appreciated. Really are. Yeah, absolutely. That is the worry that they overtake our trophy haul. I agree with that one, Fed. Right, guys, on the way out, if you can do me 2 favors. Number 1, if you can smash the like. And number 2, please remember, never forget, we are the people.